Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is the Week 2 recap of the KDL. I'm sorry for the late upload on this, my guys. Had a very busy weekend. But anyway, we are here today with the 4 matches that we will present to you today. And those 4 matches are the Crimson University Charizards versus the Atlanta Strategist, the Louisiana Lucarios versus the Green Bay Brave Bugs, the Mad Marshmallows versus the South Bronx Rock'n'Rollers, and the Plasma Fist Zero Auras versus the Northern Glares. And we are going to start this recap off with the Crimson University Charizards versus the Atlanta Strategist. Now, just from looking at these two teams right off the bat, this looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting match. Both teams have different types and type coverages on their team right now. So this is going to be an interesting one, and let's see where this goes. Alrighty, here we go. We are starting off. Kingsman sends out the Weavile, and Krimson sends out the Poltegeist. Alrighty, the Weavile goes for beat up, gets hit with that cursed body, so it's disabled. However, it's going to hit every single time and knock out the Poltegeist right off the bat. And there we are, turn 1 knockdown. Up next, we see the Urshifu come in on Crimson's side. The Weavile goes for the Icicle Crash, doing 62% damage. Gets hit with that Wicked Blow, but it did not do enough. Gets hit with another Icicle Crash. Crimson goes for the Bulk Up to increase his attack and defense. Then he goes for the Sucker Punch, which gets the critical, knocking down the Weavile, making it 1-1 right now. In comes the Incineroar to get off that Intimidate. Goes for the Fake Out to flinch the Urshifu, but was not enough to knock down. Goes for Close Combat, knocks down Incineroar with the Close Combat, and that makes it 2-1 on Crimson's side. In comes Urshifu Rapid Strike, goes for the Sucker Punch, getting off that 18%, but then he goes for Aqua Jet on the other Urshifu to knock down Crimson's Urshifu. In comes Mewtwo. But now, King switches out to Galvantula, but Crimson sets up with a Calm Mind, predicting that move. Next, he comes in with the Dynamax, goes for Max Rockfall to get the super effective hit on the Galvantula, and sets up the Sandstorm now. In comes Urshifu Rapid Strike again, goes for the Gigantamax. Sets up the Max Guard, and Crimson goes for the Max Mindstorm, but it is blocked, unfortunately. We see him go for a Max Mindstorm again, sets up the Psychic Terrain, and knocks down the Urshifu. The Sandstorm is still picking up, and now the Psychic Terrain is out. In comes Thundurus. Crimson goes for Expanding Force, and because the Psychic Terrain, it is boosted, and it knocks down the Thundurus. And this is going to be looking like game right here, folks. In comes the Toxicus, gets hit with Expanding Force, and that is game number 1 right there. Crimson wins over Kingsman Plays with an astounding victory with that Mewtwo. Goes for that switch in on the Mewtwo to counter the Urshifu, and predicted the switch out to get the boost up, and then from there Dynamaxed and took the win. Alrighty, up next we have the South Bronx Rock'n'Rollers versus the Mad Marshmallows. From just looking at these two teams right now, it definitely looks like the Mad Marshmallows have the advantage, especially with that Tapu Koko, that Zacian, and that Dragonite all being pretty fierce. However, the South Bronx Rock'n'Rollers do have the Hat Turn. The Landorus is pretty much a threat. That Amoonguss is also a pretty decent threat as well. And then we also have Darmanitan over that. It's always been a heavy hitter. I've always personally liked Darmanitan. But we will see how this match goes. And here we go. Alrighty, we see the Landorus come out from Angel of the Bronx. And then out comes the Toxapex from Jukes. Alrighty, he switches out the Toxapex into the Rotom Wash. Landorus goes for the Earthquake, but it misses due to the Levitate. Switches out to Amoonguss. Gets hit with that Hydro Pump. Only does 27% damage, but heals back up to 80% with Black Sludge. Goes for the Will-O-Wisp to burn the Amoonguss, but then the Amoonguss goes for the Spore on the Rotom to put it to sleep. Switches out the Rotom into Klefki. Goes for the Sludge Bomb. It is immune because it is a Steel type. So far, it looks like Jukes is out playing Angel right now. Switches out into the Crawdaunt. Gets hit with that Psychic. Very good play from Angel. The Klefki sets up the Reflect, but the Crawdaunt goes for the Taunt. Switches out into Toxapex. Goes for the Crabhammer. Only does 10% damage, unfortunately. Heals from the Black Sludge on the Toxapex. In comes back in Amoonguss. Sets up the Toxic Spikes. Goes for the knockoff to knock off that Black Sludge. So now that burn damage is going to whittle him down unless he uses a move like Giga Drain like he just used to heal himself. Amoonguss is still hit with that burn. In comes the Dragonite. We see that Giga Drain only doing 2% damage to the Dragonite. However, it does break the multiscale as it came in. So now he goes for the Fire Punch with a lowered attack because of the Landorus switch in. Goes for the Rock Slide. Only does 24% damage, but gets the flinch off on it. Switches back out into Amoonguss to predict the Waterfall. Very good plays back and forth from these players right now. A lot of switching in. In comes Porygon 2 with that download, but Jukes will Dynamax the Dragonite. Goes for Max Flare. Doesn't really get much off of. He sets up the Sun with that Max Flare, but that's about it. Goes for another Max Flare. Only brings him down to 46% damage, but the Porygon 2 goes for the Toxic to get that poison damage off on the Dragonite. Porygon 2 goes for the Protect. Probably not going to do a lot, but the Max Flare comes in. Only protects him a little bit because of that. But it wasn't full damage, so the Porygon 2 is going to stay relatively safe from where he is. But now Juke switches into Zacian, getting that attack boost right off the bat. The Ice Beam comes off from the Porygon 2. Switches out into Hatcherney. Sets up with the Swords Dance. Now he's 2.5 times the attack right now. Goes for the Crunch. Doesn't kill. Only leaves him at 22%. The Nuzzle comes in. Paralysis the Zacian, but that Lumberry play, though. Gets off another Crunch. And knocks down Hatcher. That was the first knockdown after 19 turns. Or 20 turns. The Ice Fang comes in, and that's a knockdown right there. We're going to see back-to-back knockdowns right now. In comes Landorus. Out comes the Crawdaunt. Goes for the Ice Fang, brings him down to 73% damage, but gets the freeze off on the Crawdaunt. May not have been a knockdown, but just enough to put a stop in his tracks. The Crawdaunt goes down. In comes Darmanitan. What will Darmanitan do? Switches out into the Toxapex. Gets hit with that Flare Blitz. He's now going to be locked into it, most likely. Switches out into Porygon 2 again. Gets that special attack boost. Gets hit with the knocking off the Eviolite on the Porygon 2. Goes for Tri-Attack and to try to do some type of status effect to him, but it does not work. Sets up the Toxic Spikes once again on Angel's side just to deal a little bit more of a frustration, especially against that Darmanitan. And if he switches out Porygon 2. But now the Toxapex is just going to sit back and wait. But now Toxapex goes down to the Porygon 2. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Angel is going to come out on top on this one, especially with the setup that is on his side. Goes for the U-turn against the Porygon 2. Comes into Klefki. Gets hit with that Tri-Attack right there. Only loses 26% health. Comes back in with the Reflect to set up on anything physical. Just goes for the Psychic, knocking down the Porygon 2. And Klefki is going to stay out with 56% health. In comes the Landorus with that Intimidate. Dynamaxes the Landorus, getting off that Max Quake to increase his special defense. Out comes the Dragonite. Gonna go for Max Rockfall against the Dragonite. Only does 42% damage. Wow. Hits him with the Waterfall, knocks him down to 20%. Interesting. Interesting play right there. And the extreme speed comes out, getting the kill off on the Landorus. But I believe with the Sandstorm and the Toxic, it's just enough to kill the Dragonite. And it looks like this is going to be a Darmanitan. Darmanitan comes out, but so does Rotom's Wash. Gets poisoned from the Toxic Spike. The Rock Slide comes out, but the Rotom is going to stay asleep. And it looks like this is going to be it, folks. He's going to go for a stall victory right here, just to ensure if anything happens, the Darmanitan will faint due to the poison constantly building up, and the Sandstorm as well. Continues to go for the Rock Slide, gets that critical hit off, knocks down the Rotom. Hoping that Reflect goes away. Reflect does go away. In comes Tapu Koko with that balloon. Goes for the Rock Slide, gets that 51%, pops the balloon. Does he get the flinch off? No, he doesn't. He gets hit with the Thunder Punch, and unfortunately, that knocks out Angel of the Bronx. And that is game right there for doing the Jukes in Week 2. Very close match from these two. Was kind of looking like a comeback from Angel of the Bronx, but unfortunately, the Darmanitan did not have enough attack power to be able to deal the amount of damage he needed, and did not get the RNG off to proc those flinches like he was trying to do. But good match overall, and can't wait to see what these guys do next week. Alrighty, up next we have the Green Bay Brave Bugs against the Louisiana Lucarios. Both of these teams are looking pretty stacked right now. Let's see if Talos can pull out a victory against this all-fighting team. Will this mono-fighting team come out on top of this league? Let's see how this goes. Alrighty, out first we see the Terrakion, and then we see the Cinderace from Talos. Switches out into Marshadow. Goes for the Zen Headbutt, knocks him down to 38% with that. Switches out into Quagsire. Shiny Quagsire. Goes for Poltegeist against the Quagsire. Gets hit with that Rocky Helmet. Knocks him down to 40% health. Wow, Poltegeist does a lot against Quagsire. That's a pretty good counter right there. And what's good about that is that the Rocky Helmet does not proc against that. So that's actually a really good thing. Goes for the Shadow Sneak against the Marshadow from the Aegislash. Switches out into Scrafty. Switches out into Clefable. Scrafty uses Substitute to get some layers of protection off. Knocks off the Life Orb from the Klefki, but then the Moonblast comes in to take away that Substitute. Goes for another knockoff, doesn't do much, and then the Moonblast knocks down Scrafty, thus giving Talos a lead right now. Out comes Lucario to deal with this Fairy type, but then Talos switches out into the Arachnid, goes for the Steel Beam, does not kill with the Steel Beam, goes for Steel Beam again, and this kills himself, bringing down the Arachnid to 51%, sets up the Sticky Webs. Now in comes Terrakion with the Speed Drop. But now comes an Aegislash. Gets hit with that Stone Edge, unfortunately, and only does 27% damage. Sets up for the King Shield. Gets hit with that Earthquake, but it does nothing. Dynamaxes the Terrakion. Goes for another Max Quake, knocking down the Aegislash and increasing his special defense. Out comes Striker, and he's going to Dynamax his Cinderace. Goes for Max Mindstorm. Sets up the Psychic Terrain. Goes for Max Knuckle to deal some fighting damage to increase his attack. But it doesn't look like it's going to work because Terrakion had lower speed, but I believe he was already slower than the Cinderace anyway. Sets up with the Girder. Gets hit with that Max Mindstorm. Goes for Double Team to increase his evasion. Goes for Bounce. Gets off the Power Herb because of the Bounce. Comes into Hitmontop to set up that Sticky Web and that Intimidate. So he's lower speed, but he lowers his opponent's attack as well. Goes for the Acrobatics. Gets hit with that Sucker Punch, and it's slowly going to whittle down the Cinderace. But it looks like he's going to switch into Clefable. And it looks like he's going to take the victory here with Clefable, with a Moonblast, I'm going to assume. Yep, in comes the Moonblast, hitting the Hitmontop, and that is game right there. In 21 turns, the Green Bay Brave Bucks come out on top against Louisiana Lucarios. Alrighty, up finally, we have the Northern Glares versus the Plasma Fest Zeraoras. Both of these teams are looking to be the top two competitors. Let's see what these two teams have against each other. These two are looking really stacked. We're seeing that Rayquaza, that Dragapult, the Magearna, the Ditto on the side of the Plasma Fist Zeraoras, but we're also seeing the Dracofish, the Heatran, the Xerneas, and that Ferrothorn on the Northern Glare side. Both of these teams are stacked with power, but let's see who comes out on top in today's match. Alrighty, here we go. We are seeing number one is Azumarill coming out against the Ferrothorn. Switches out Azumarill into Blaziken. Sets up the Leech Seed on the Blaziken to get off that health drip. In comes Heatran. Goes for the Blaze Kick. Gets hit with that Flash Fire, predicting the Fire move. However, Blaziken is going to sit here with that Speed Boost. Going to go for a Protect against the Blaziken. Goes for Close Combat. Doesn't protect him. It does protect him, but it doesn't help out the Blaziken with that Leech Seed. In comes another Close Combat, getting off the knockoff, lowering his special defense and his regular defense. Loses some health because of Life Orb, but is going to sit pretty with that 2.5 speed boost. In comes the Tyranitar with the Sandstorm. Switches out into Ferrothorn. Gets hit with that Close Combat, knocking down the 2%. Gets hit with that Iron Barbs and that Rocky Helmet. Loses some HP from the Life Orb. Sandstorm's going to come in, and the Life Drain from the Leech Seed is going to kill that Blaziken. That was a substantial health drop from the Blaziken. Well played out from Dumb. Goes for the Protect. Gets hit with the Focus Blast, but the Protect saved him that turn. Sandstorm isn't really doing nothing right now. In comes Scizor against the Magearna. Gets hit with the Focus Blast, knocking him down to 42% health. Gets hit with another Focus Blast, knocking out the Scizor on Dumb's side. Gets set up with the Soul Heart from the Magearna. Switches back into the Tyranitar. Dynamaxes the Tyranitar. Gets hit with that Focus Blast, knocking him down to 30% health. Loses his special defense, but it gets that Weakness Policy proc, increasing his attack and special attack. Sets up the Max Flare to get the Sun up on his side of the field. We're going to see the Ditto come in with the Transform, setting up the terrain, getting the boosts. Goes for Thunderbolt, which surprisingly wouldn't have been the choice move. Goes for the Max Lightning, knocking him down to 8% on both of the Tyranitars. Gets hit with another Thunderbolt. Goes down with that. And now Ditto is looking like he's sitting pretty. However, we see Xerneas come in. Gets hit with that Thunderbolt, knocking him down to 42% health. Goes for the Moonblast to get the critical off on the Ditto. In comes the Dragapult against the Xerneas. He's going to Dynamax the Dragapult. Goes for Max Phantasm against the Xerneas and knocks down the Xerneas. Interesting play right there. Switches out into the Ferrothorn. Gets hit with that Max Phantasm and knocks down the Ferrothorn. Dumb's last Pokemon, Dracofish, comes out. Gets hit with that Max Whirlwind and knocks him down. And right there, a 15-turn victory. GG from the Plasma Fest Zeraora. Still with 3 Pokemon in the back. A nearly fully health Dragapult, Azumarill, and Rayquaza all sitting in the back. It doesn't seem like the Plasma Fist Zeraoras are going to lose this season. The biggest play of the season is if anyone beats the Plasma Fist Zeraoras. With such a stacked team that he has, it definitely looks like it's going to be harder to beat. But with that, that is this week's matches. Up next for week 3, the 4 matches that we have are going to be the Crimson University Charizards versus the Green Bay Bravebugs, the Louisiana Lucarios versus the Mad Marshadows, the Atlanta Strategist versus the Plasma Fist Zeraoras, and the South Bronx Rock'n'Rollers versus the Northern Glares. All these teams are looking pretty stacked right now. This is going to be a crazy week 3. We will see who comes out on top. But anyway, I will see you all later. I hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, good gaming. God bless. Go beyond and keep on keeping on.